I always prided myself on having a happy marriage, or so I thought. Our 7th anniversary had just passed, and Claire and I celebrated with a quiet dinner at our favorite Italian bistro, the one with the candlelit tables and the violinist who played just a little off-key. That night, as we clinked wine glasses under the soft glow of the dimmed lights, I believed we were as close as ever. But then, things changed. It started small. Claire's phone was suddenly always on silent. At first, I thought nothing of it. After all, she was a senior software engineer, often on call. But the late-night buzzing and her discreet glances began to gnaw at me. One particularly sleepless night, I lay listening to the muted vibrations from her phone on the nightstand. Claire was sound asleep, or so she seemed. The curiosity, or perhaps it was the suspicion that had been brewing in the back of my mind, finally got the better of me. I reached for her phone. Just as my fingers brushed the sleek, cold surface, she stirred but didn't wake. The screen lit up to a message notification from an unknown number. "Are we still on for tonight?" My heart pounded in my chest as I unlocked her phone. Thankfully, she hadn't changed the passcode. The messages were a series of exchanges with this same number, each one more incriminating than the last. The words that shattered my heart were stark against the glowing screen. "Thanks for last night. I've never felt so alive. But remember, it's $500 for each meet." I sat back, the phone slipping from my numb fingers. My wife was paying for someone else's company, for someone else's touch. The world I knew, the life we had built, crumbled in those silent, early hours. For days, I walked around in a daze, a spectator in my own life. Claire seemed oblivious to my internal turmoil, her demeanor unchanged, her smiles as bright as ever. How could she be so normal when everything was so wrong? Finally, I confronted her. It was a rainy Tuesday evening when I couldn't take the charade any longer. "Claire, we need to talk," I said as she walked through the door, shaking off her umbrella. She looked up, surprised but calm. "Of course, what's up?" "It's your phone." "The messages," I managed to choke out, the words tasting bitter. Her face fell for a moment, a flicker of something I couldn't read, before she composed herself. "Oh, those. Let me explain." But I didn't want to hear excuses or lies. "Save it," I snapped, the anger and hurt boiling over. "I've seen enough. I know about the money, the meetings." Claire's eyes widened, her mouth opening and closing as if searching for the right thing to say. Finally, she sighed, a long, weary exhalation. "I should have told you sooner. It's not what you think." "I don't know what to think anymore," I interrupted. The conversation spiraled, a tornado of accusations and denials. It ended with Claire sobbing in the living room as I packed a suitcase. I needed space, time, maybe forever. The following weeks were a blur of lawyers and bitter exchanges. The divorce was swift. Claire didn't fight it. She moved out and left me with the house, the memories, and a heart so broken I thought it might never mend. As I stood watching her drive away for the last time, the rain began to fall again, blurring the streetlights and washing away the last traces of our life together. I had ruined her, just as she had destroyed me. Our paths, now diverged, were never to cross again. In the empty silence of our home, I wondered if I would ever feel truly happy again. 3 months had passed since Claire drove away into the rain-drenched night. The house felt cavernous and empty, echoing with the ghosts of our laughter and whispered promises. Each room held memories too painful to revisit, pushing me out into the world more than I'd have liked. I needed a fresh start, or so I convinced myself. One Thursday evening, I found myself at the local bar, a run-down place on the edge of town called the Rusty Tap. The neon sign flickered erratically, casting an eerie glow on the patrons within. I didn't usually frequent bars, but the anonymity it offered was a balm to my aching soul. As I nursed a whiskey, a voice interrupted my brooding. "Tough day?" The man beside me was rugged, with a weathered face that looked like it had seen too many storms. "You could say that," I replied, not really in the mood for conversation. "I'm Tom," he said, extending a rough hand. I shook it, giving my name in return. Tom seemed to sense my reluctance to talk, but he persisted. You know, sometimes sharing a burden makes it lighter. I hesitated, then the floodgates opened. Before I knew it, I was recounting the whole sordid tale of Claire and the unknown man, the betrayal, and the divorce. Tom listened, nodding occasionally, his eyes sharp and assessing. When I finished, he was silent for a moment. Then, he leaned closer, dropping his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. What if I told you that you could get some real revenge? I frowned, wary of where this was heading. What do you mean? Let's just say I specialize in solving problems. For a price, Tom explained, his gaze locked on mine, gauging my reaction. I should have felt repulsed, should have excused myself and left. But the raw, unhealed part of my heart throbbed painfully. I'm listening, I found myself saying. Tom outlined a plan. It was reckless and fraught with legal peril, a scheme involving exposing not just the man Claire had been with, but roping her into a scandal so big it would tarnish her reputation forever. He had connections, he claimed, people who owed him favors. Why help me? I asked, suspicion gnawing at me. Let's just say I have my reasons for disliking unfaithful people, Tom said, his eyes darkening with a story untold. I left the rusty tap with Tom's number and a decision to make. As I lay in bed that night, the shadows of doubt crept in. Was I really considering this? Was this who I had become? The next day brought another twist. I received a call from an unknown number. Hesitant, I answered. Is this Mike? The voice was female, cautious. Yes. Who is this? My name is Sarah. I think we need to talk about your ex-wife, Claire, and how you might not know the whole story. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I can explain more, but not over the phone. Can we meet? Sarah asked. Curiosity piqued, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown the following afternoon. As I hung up, my mind raced with possibilities. What did Sarah know? And how would her revelation impact the choice I faced with Tom's dangerous offer? The downtown cafe was bustling with the mid-afternoon crowd, the air thick with the scent of espresso and the hum of conversation. I arrived early, my nerves on edge, scanning every face for someone who might be Sarah. My hands fidgeted with the coffee cup, the steam curling up like the twisting thoughts in my mind. A woman approached, her stride confident yet cautious. Mike, she asked, her voice matching the one I'd heard on the phone. That's me, I confirmed, standing to greet her. Sarah? Yes, thank you for meeting me. She settled across from me, her eyes scanning the room before settling on mine. Her demeanor suggested urgency and fear, an interesting blend that piqued my curiosity further. So, what is it that I don't know about Claire? I asked, cutting straight to the chase. Sarah took a deep breath, her fingers tapping a nervous rhythm on the table. It's not just about Claire. It's bigger than her. She got caught up in something dangerous, something she couldn't control. I leaned forward, my interest sharpening. What are you talking about? Your wife, well, ex-wife, was being blackmailed, Sarah divulged, her eyes not leaving mine. The guy she was paying wasn't just some random affair. He was part of a ring that targets vulnerable women, entraps them, and then extorts money from them. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. Guilt washed over me for how quickly I had believed the worst. Why are you telling me this? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Because I was one of them, too, Sarah confessed. I managed to get out, but Claire is still trapped. They're dangerous, and they have connections everywhere. I think they might be onto me for talking to you. I processed her words, the weight of the situation settling heavily on my shoulders. Why would Claire not just tell me? Why go through all this alone? Sarah shook her head sadly. Pride, fear, shame. The emotions that blackmail feeds on. She was scared of losing you. I thought about Tom's offer, the dark path he proposed for revenge. Now it felt tainted, misguided. What can we do to help her? To stop this? We need evidence. I have some, but not enough to go to the police yet. They're careful, these guys. But I know where we can get more, Sarah said, her voice lowering to a whisper. And you need my help? I asked, already knowing my answer. Yes. I can't do it alone. We devised a plan right there, amidst the clatter of coffee cups and the oblivious buzz of the cafe. We would gather evidence against the blackmail ring and expose them, not only to free Claire but also to prevent them from ruining more lives. As we parted ways, Sarah looked back, her expression one of mixed hope and fear. Be careful, Mike. These people play for keeps. I nodded, feeling the weight of the adventure ahead. As I walked back to my car, my resolve hardened. This wasn't just about getting back at Claire anymore. It was about justice, about righting a wrong and perhaps, in the process, finding a way back to the life I thought I had lost. The plan was set, and over the next few weeks, Sarah and I worked tirelessly, gathering evidence against the blackmail ring. Each step we took was fraught with danger, shadowing the men who slinked through the city's underbelly, capturing conversations and transactions with hidden cameras and microphones. Despite the risk, our alliance grew stronger, built on a foundation of mutual determination to end the tyranny of those who preyed on vulnerability. Late one night, we met in a dimly lit parking garage to exchange what we hoped would be the final pieces of evidence. The air was thick with tension, our breaths visible in the cold night air. Once we hand this over to the police, it's over, Sarah said, her voice a mix of relief and lingering fear. Yes, over, I echoed, though a part of me knew that some wounds would never fully heal. You've been amazing through all this, Sarah. I can't thank you enough. She offered a tired smile, then her gaze shifted past me, her body tensed. We need to be quick. I think we're being watched. I followed her gaze, and sure enough, two shadowy figures approached. Panic surged, but it was too late to run. Hand over the evidence, and you might walk away from this, one of the figures demanded, his voice gruff. Outnumbered and outgunned, we complied, handing over our bags of collected evidence. As they grabbed the bags, Sarah whispered urgently, I'm sorry, Mike. Before I could react, the figure turned to leave but then stopped. You should know, Mike, Claire wasn't just a victim. She was one of us. The word struck like a blow. What are you talking about? He chuckled darkly. She wasn't blackmailed. She was part of the ring, a willing participant. She recruited the women, like Sarah here. I turned to Sarah in disbelief, but her eyes confirmed the truth. Betrayal sliced through me, deeper and more painful than I could have imagined. Sarah, why? I managed to choke out. It was the only way to get close to them, to bring them down from the inside. I used you, yes, but not for the reasons you think. I wanted to save the others, but I couldn't tell you everything. If you knew, it would have put you in even more danger, she pleaded. The men laughed, watching our exchange with amusement before disappearing into the darkness with our evidence. The realization that Claire had been part of the deception all along, that our entire relationship was built on lies, was too much to bear. My heart hardened, the last remnants of any love I had felt for her evaporating. I can't ever forgive you, Sarah. Or Claire, I said, the words bitter and cold. I understand, Sarah replied, her voice resigned. I never expected you to. Once this is over, you'll never have to see me again. True to her word, after that night, Sarah disappeared. Whether she went after the blackmail ring on her own or turned herself in, I never found out. As for Claire, our paths never crossed again. I moved to a new city, started over with a new job, a new life, one far removed from the deceit and betrayal that had defined my past. In the end, the quest for justice had cost me everything. Yet, as I looked out over the skyline of my new beginning, I realized some truths are worth uncovering, even if they leave you broken. Better to rebuild from truth than live in the ruins of deceit.